Hello friends, myself Dr. Nidhi Darbari on My Education Treasure, and today I am going to explain about the characteristics of teaching. The characteristics of teaching. The main characteristics of teaching are: teaching is an activity. The teaching is a verb which shows a sense of doing something. A person, when he teaches, tries to perform some task and behaves like a dynamic system. Because of the dynamic nature of teaching, there are different ways of teaching at different places and in different times. The teacher's activities in a classroom can be divided into four categories: teaching, instruction, ecological, and management. A teacher performs these tasks in order to set up physical and social arrangements of the classroom. Teaching is an interaction. In the process of teaching, the students become active in learning process by interaction. There must be two persons, a teacher and a student, for the existence of the teaching act. In teaching, a particular type of learning climate is produced in the classroom through interaction of teachers' behavior and students' behavior, where both influence each other, but the steering of interaction remains in the hand of the teacher, which enables the students to learn effectively. Teaching is an intentional activity. Teaching is an intended behavior for which the aim is to induce learning. A teacher may not be successful, but he is expected to teach successfully. When a teacher is teaching, he is paying attention to what is going on to make diagnosis and to change one's behavior. Teaching is a decision-making activity. One of the major roles of teacher is to make decisions at different stages of teaching and learning process, that is, what is to be done, who is to do it, when, where and how, within the framework of planning, organizing, leading and controlling of learning experiences. Teaching is a humane activity. Teaching is not only instructing, imparting, or creating conditions for learning, but it is a humane activity which aims to help individuals for becoming human beings. Teaching is a service to the society, aiming at converting a biological man into a socially, emotionally, culturally, and morally desirable member of the society. Therefore, the members of the community have expected teachers to be highly devoted and self-sacrificing. Teaching is a normative behavior. In normative concept, teaching designates a family of activities. Training and instructions are primary members of the family, whereas indoctrinating and conditioning are near relatives, whereas propagandizing and intimidation are not family members at all. Training and conditioning consist of activities that shape skills and other behaviors, while instruction and indoctrination are made up of activities by which knowledge and belief are induced. Generally, people agree that training and instructing comprise teaching. Conditioning relies on neither evidence nor reason and is deemed to be remotely related to teaching. Training may or may not involve instruction, giving information to the form of direction, reasoning, and evidences. Both instruction and indoctrination are used to induce belief, just as training and conditioning are used to shape behavior. Instruction attempts to induce belief by reason and factual evidence, by welcoming objections and criticisms, and by persuading the power of logic. Instruction further approaches indoctrination. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to the video to motivate me, share it for others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. Teaching is an activity of sequential steps. Teaching is an activity of three phases of teaching: pre-active phase, interactive phase, and post-active phase. At pre-active phase, teaching is intentional and rational activity when the teacher acts like problem solver, decision maker, hypothesis tester, and inquirer. In interactive phase, teacher interacts with students where the teacher's behavior is spontaneous. During post-active phase, the teacher does the activities of interactive stage. He evaluates students' progress, the relevance of instructional objectives, the effectiveness of instructional strategies, etc. Teaching is a science. Teaching is a science as it advocates the systematic application of carefully defined procedures designed to yield uniform and consistent results. The behavior of the teacher is being applied to understand almost every aspect of education: subject requirement, team teaching, the use of teaching machines, language laboratories, measurement and evaluation, grouping, and other devices for adapting learning material and activities to different types of students. Academic ability, guidance and counseling, new avenues and techniques of reporting to the students and parents, public relations, length of class, period, school day, school year, independent study by students, homework, acceleration of students, use of audiovisual aids, application of teaching techniques, etc. Teaching is an art. Teaching is an art. As Tagore said, teacher can never teach unless he is learning himself. So it is the profession which requires blood, sweat, and tears. The teaching is considered to be an art because it involves skill to disseminate knowledge, to maintain the interest and attention of the students, and the delicate handling of the problems of the student to modify his behavior. Education is thought of as an art based upon sound fundamental philosophy of its nature and objectives of its relationship to the society, knowledge of available subject matter, knowledge of the individual students within the class, and the knowledge of the principles of human growth. Teaching is a complex phenomenon. The teacher is the principal actor in the classroom, involved in classroom activities. They are often unable to explain specifically what they do and what they plan to do. In a classroom, a number of transactions take place in a limited time that it becomes difficult even for an observer to have an account of the activities done due to the complex nature of teaching. Teaching is not an independent activity. Man is a social animal. He cannot survive in vacuum. He has to establish relationship with other members of his society to survive, to fulfill his needs, etc. Teaching too is a social process. It takes place in social setup where the teacher aims at improving the behavior of the individual. Teaching prepares the individual to become cultured, socially acceptable, morally, intellectually, physically fit to render service to humanity. Teaching is a professional activity. Every activity requires a person who is professional. For example, in medicine, a carpenter will not be successful because he had no knowledge of that specific field, that is medical profession. It requires those who had already received training in this field. Same is the case with teaching profession. Every adult have the idea of teaching to his children, but we cannot call them as professionals. Our professional act is an intellectual activity that performs some critically important service to the society. Teaching is an activity which is carried on by the professionals. It demands those persons who have skilled and have gone through different teacher training courses. To be professionally competent, a teacher should have knowledge about the children, about the teaching and learning process, about the social context of schooling, about the curriculum, the skills needed to select from his knowledge in order to provide appropriate and valid learning experiences, and a whole range of practical, executive, and interpersonal skills to apply these mainly intellectual capacities in everyday classroom context. Teaching is both formal and informal. Teaching is formal, meaning where it is an organized system with a definite purpose, planned, systematic, and deliberate, and informal, meaning where there is no organized system, unplanned, unsystematic, incidental, and indefinite. In the classroom, the teacher and the students meet in a formal way and teaching takes place. Outside the classroom, the teacher and the students meet where teaching does take place, that is informal teaching. Teaching is not one sided. Any teaching, whether formal or informal, in which only the teacher remains active and students simply silent spectators, is not teaching. In good teaching, both the teacher and the student have to be fully active, face to face with each other, and this interaction makes teaching learning process an effective and successful one. Teaching is a planned activity. Teaching is well planned and well prepared activity organized in a systematic way. Before teaching, a teacher prepares and plans his lessons. He collects all information from different sources like books, journals, references, etc. to make his teaching a successful one. He thinks of different methods, audiovisual aids, charts, maps, etc. to make his teaching more effective. Teaching is diagnostic and remedial. Teaching is diagnostic in the sense that the teacher knows exactly the abilities, capabilities, and interests of his students. He knows the individual differences of the students to select suitable teaching material, audiovisual aids, methods, academic environment to be involved in the teaching process. He uses the diagnostic techniques to know the difficulties and problems of students and then suggest remedial measures to remedy those difficulties. Teaching is dominated by communication skills. Teaching depends on the communication. The better the communication, the better is the process of teaching. The student of any class will receive anything from the teacher if they will be in a position to understand that. If a teacher is teaching class 3 students in Kerala in Hindi, the students will not gain anything because they do not understand the said language, and hence the teacher should use mother tongue as the medium of instruction. Teaching is worthy of analysis and interpretation. Teaching can be observed, analyzed, and assessed. The analysis and assessment may provide essential feedback for bringing desirable improvement in the process of teaching. The improvement can be brought about in the teacher, in the student, or in the teaching learning process. For example, a new innovation in teacher training program, that is micro teaching, is a technique through which we observe, analyze, and assess the teachers and their teaching through different skills and prepare them to become good and effective teachers. Teaching is democratic. Teaching is always democratic in its attitude. It attempts to create a democratic environment in which every individual is respected. In this environment, every individual is entitled to equal rights with every other students in the class, and that he is subject to the same rules with respect to social equality as other students. No one is discriminated on caste, color, creed, or religion. Teaching causes motivation. The activity of teaching causes motivation that results into learning. For example, when the student teacher goes for practice teaching, it is the teaching which motivates the student teacher to plan their lesson, and during this planning, they themselves learn more and more about that content. Thus, it is evident that teaching is a very complex activity and there is no specific and universally accepted definition of teaching. It can be concluded that teaching activity is the transfer of knowledge or skill from teacher to students, the facilitation of the student by the teacher in the art of learning, a social act of influencing students by the teacher, doing anything that might lead to learning. Thank you very much for patient listening.